I'm here to talk to you about something I wish I had known before investing in Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, or any kind of financial asset. What I wish someone had done is take me aside 11 years ago when I first learned about Bitcoin and told me, David, before you invest in Bitcoin, you need to do this. That way I would have saved myself a lot of trouble, right? In the end, over these 11 years, I've stumbled a lot. I've made many mistakes. I've really messed up countless times. Ultimately, all the mistakes we learn from shape us. They build us. That's really what you end up learning from. The things that go well for you in life, in the end, you don't really learn anything from them. Like, it's just an anecdote. You keep it as a good memory and that's it. But the bad things that happen to you in life are what shape you, what really make you stronger and give you that wisdom, that growth, that knowledge. So, what would I have told myself 11 years ago when I invested in Bitcoin? Obviously, the first thing anyone would think is, David, don't sell. Like, you buy Bitcoin at $300. In 2025, it's going to be worth $110, $0. Don't sell it. You'll make a lot more with much less suffering. For example, this phrase, I saw it the other day. I was at a bookstore buying books since, well, personally, I like to read, especially books on personal development, finance, and so on. I've even recommended some to you before. And the other day, I was at the bookstore looking for something new, and I found this book. This one here, this book right here, Invicto, Achieve More and Suffer Less. And it caught my attention. Both the title Invicto and the phrase Achieve More and Suffer Less caught my attention. Why? Because I was thinking, wow, achieve more and suffer less is exactly what would have happened if I had simply never sold my Bitcoins 11 years ago. Just imagine, right? What was worth 300 is now at 110, zero today. So it's crazy how much I would have made if I had just done nothing. Thank you. I would have achieved more, in other words. Today I would have much more money than I do, and I would have suffered much less. However, obviously, that's not how reality works. The reality is that back then, you bought for 300, Bitcoin went up to 600, and wow, it was a financial miracle. Making a 100% return in such a short time was truly a financial miracle. That is to say, there was no other asset that could give you that kind of return. And on top of that, I had studied economics. And it was something where I thought, wow, 100%, there's nothing that gives you that. No stock, no company, nothing gives you 100% in such a short time. And obviously the first thing you do is sell it. You sell it, cash out, and move on to something else. Because in the end, you don't really know where you're investing. I mean, where am I investing? This is something speculative. It's a bubble. Bitcoin is going to disappear in a few days. Will it continue? Nobody knew. And that's where another thing comes in that I would have told myself at that moment. David, before investing in any type of asset, whether it's Bitcoin, stocks, companies, real estate, any kind of asset where you want to invest, the very first thing is to learn where you're investing. Like, try to know where you're putting your money. Study, learn, educate yourself. Don't invest in something just because someone told you to or because you think it might turn out well. In other words, invest in something where you really understand what you're investing in. Bitcoin. What the heck is Bitcoin? Find out what Bitcoin is. Why? Because if you study what Bitcoin is, you see the development it has had over the last 14 years since it came into existence up to today, and you see the future outlook it has. From there, you can draw a much more accurate conclusion, and you'll avoid falling for it when some hyped up fool comes along and tells you that Bitcoin is going to hit $50 million. Tomorrow, don't believe it. And when another hyped up fool comes and tells you that Bitcoin is going to crash tomorrow and disappear, don't believe that either. And in this way, you learn to shape your emotions based on what you're actually doing. Because in the end, if you don't have knowledge about what you're doing, it's much easier for your emotions to play tricks on you. It's much easier that, for example, if someone tries to tell you something very positive about Bitcoin, you'll believe it and act according to that dream. It's much easier that if someone comes along and tells you something negative, you'll believe it and act accordingly, selling at a loss or losing money. It's much easier that if you make money, you get motivated and mess up on the next move. It's much easier that if you lose money, you get frustrated, become afraid, or even want to try to get revenge on the market and end up losing money. It's much easier to make mistakes if you don't know where you're investing, whether it's in Bitcoin or any other asset where you're putting your money. It's very important that you learn where you're investing your money. This way, you can build a solid long-term strategy. And over that long term, whether it's 5, 10, or 20 years, there won't be anything that can make you change your mind. There won't be anything that makes you destroy your entire strategy and change it. And this is where the next thing comes in that I wish someone had told me, David, you're going to make more money in the long term than in the short term. Focus your capital and your main wealth on the long term rather than the short term. Invest more in your long-term assets, invest a little in your medium-term assets, and invest very little in your short-term assets. For things that give you quick money, the short term, you should invest only a small amount. For things that can give you a decent amount of money in the medium term, you should invest a little more. But where you really need to invest the most is in what gives you money in the long term. Even if it takes longer to see returns, the long term, when invested in good assets, ends up giving you better returns than any short-term asset. Let me give you several examples. Bitcoin. If you had invested in Bitcoin 10 years ago for the long term, it went from 300 to 110, zero. In other words, it has obviously been a success. With gold, if you had invested in gold 10 years ago, it has almost tripled in value practically. It has been a success. The SP500, if you had invested in the SP500 10 years ago, the increase it has seen has been tremendous. You could also say it has nearly tripled as well. And in the end, you realize that these assets, in the long term, have ended up giving you more. With the property, if you had invested in real estate 10 years ago, today it might be worth twice as much. That property, you've made money in it. These are assets that, if you do things right and allocate your capital to this type of investment, in the long run, you'll end up with much more money and you'll fight inflation. In the end, we have to keep in mind two factors here that we're fighting against. And this is another thing I wish someone had told me. We're fighting against time and we're fighting against inflation. Why against time? Because in the end, what we all want is to have money, and we all want it now. But we never know how to be satisfied. We never know. If you want $1 million, do you want it right now? Do you want it in 5 years? Obviously, we would all say, I want it now. But you have to follow a path to be able to achieve it in a stable way. I say this a lot. I mean, I think earning €1 million is actually very easy, but it takes time. That is, if you tell me, make me €1 million by tomorrow, I'll tell you. I have no fucking idea how to do that. I have no fucking idea. I'm not going to sign that. Make €1 million by tomorrow? I don't know how to do that. But if you tell me, make €1 million in 5 years, I'll sign that. I'll say, okay, I'll sign it. I know how to do it to make €1 million in 5 years. So time is something we have to take into account. That's on one hand. And on the other hand, there's inflation. Inflation always works against us. Because while we're generating income, looking for those assets that can bring us returns in the short, medium, and long term, on the other hand, inflation is eating away at part of the profitability we're generating, right? Because in the end, just imagine 3 years ago when inflation was at 10%, that's an official inflation rate of 10%. But we all know and have noticed that in reality, inflation is higher. You only have to look at the day-to-day prices of anything we consume, right? Electricity, gas, food, anything at all. We have seen that everyone has liked much more. All of that is inflation. It's not just some business owner raising prices, it's inflation. We need to be very clear about that. So on one hand, we're fighting against inflation, which every year eats away a little bit of our capital. And if we don't fight against inflation, if we just leave our money sitting there, saving it and doing nothing, eventually inflation will end up eating it all away. And you end up saying, damn, all my savings have gone down the drain, they're worthless. Like, I can hardly buy anything with those savings because inflation has made that money lose its value. So this brings us to another thing I wish someone had told me a long time ago. In this case, 11 years ago when I invested in Bitcoin. I wish someone had told me, invest, don't just hold on to money, invest. Why? Because in the end, the rich invest. They don't have cash. You're never going to meet a billionaire who has tons of money sitting in the bank or a huge pile of cash under a mattress. They just don't exist. They don't. When we look at the richest people in the world, any millionaire, they'll all tell you the same thing. Yes, I'm a billionaire. Yes, I have however many millions, however many companies. People of this caliber will tell you all of that. But in reality, they don't have that money in the bank. Yes, I'm a billionaire. Why? Because I have 100 fully paid properties that generate X returns for me. I'm a billionaire because I have X companies, each of which is worth a certain amount. I'm a billionaire because I own so many shares in X companies that generate a certain amount for me. That's what they're going to tell you. None of them will say, yes, I have 100 million in the bank. For what? So that what I mentioned to you happens to them, that inflation comes and eats up that money. No rich person is interested in that, and the wealthy know that this is how it works. That's why we've seen gold rise so much over the last 3 years. Because they're seeing the warning signs, they're seeing inflation, which is advancing at a crazy pace. That's why Bitcoin is going to rise so much. Because it also fights against inflation. That's why BlackRock is investing so much in real estate, is buying so many houses in the United States. It already owns 60% of the properties. Why? Because these are things that truly preserve the value of your money, and on top of that can generate income for you. Like I always tell you, if you buy gold, in 10 years it will be worth more. If you buy Bitcoin, in 10 years it will be worth more. If you buy property, in 10 years it will be worth more. And on top of that, if you rent it out, you can generate extra income. If you buy SP500 stocks or some interesting index fund with a future outlook, in 10 years it will be worth more. And that's where the rich are investing. Why do I think the market will keep rising in the coming years? Because of what I've just told you. People are going to keep investing in tech companies like Nvidia, Tesla, Amazon, Meta, Apple, and Google. They're going to keep investing there. That's the plain truth. Why? Because nobody wants their damn money sitting in the bank in a fiat currency that's being eaten away. And this is something I would also tell myself 10 or 11 years ago. David, don't keep fiat money. Fiat money, at most. At most. Keep enough to cover your expenses for a year. How much do you spend in a year? I'm just making this up. 30 euros. 30 euros, that's the maximum you should have in your bank account. That way, when the first of the month comes around, they can charge you for your electricity bill, your gas bill, water, your kids' school. I don't know, anything you have set up for automatic payment, right? The phone, the mortgage, if you have one, whatever it is. Let them deduct it from there. But the rest should be invested. Hey, I have 50 euros in the bank. What the hell are you doing with 50 euros in the bank? What are you doing with 50 euros in the bank? Take those 50 euros and open a savings account where every week you're investing 100 euros in an index fund. Set up a DCA in Bitcoin where you're investing another 100 euros every week in Bitcoin, or 50 euros in Bitcoin, half of it. Take 30, zero out of those 50, €0. And use them as a down payment on a property that you see is a bargain. And use that money for the down payment to buy that property, to renovate it, sell it, and make more money. And stop the cycle. On one hand, you keep investing a little bit every week or every month, depending on your ability to save, in an index fund, a little bit more in Bitcoin, and even a little bit in gold if you can. It's more complicated to invest in gold, but it can also be done. And in properties, in the end, it's not complicated. You don't need to be a real estate tycoon or a real estate expert to invest in properties. Anyone can do this. Anyone who sees a property they like, who thinks it's a great deal, can go, negotiate, ask the bank if they give you a mortgage, make a down payment, renovate it, and sell it. There's nothing complicated about it, folks. The idea is to always try to find an exit strategy. Then, hey, as you start acquiring several properties and want to move a bit faster, you might take one of the properties you've already paid off and refinance it to get some cash flow, invest it in another property, and start creating a snowball effect. Eventually, there comes a point where if you have several properties, some that you use simply to buy, renovate, and sell, or just buy and sell directly, making a quick flip, that's one side of it. On the other hand, you might have some properties where you think, hey, I'm interested in keeping these because, I don't know, I have a couple of apartments on the coast, a little house in the mountains, in a pretty touristy area or in the snow. You keep those and rent them out, some as vacation rentals, others as room rentals in student areas. And all these properties, besides owning them and having your wealth invested in real estate that appreciates over time and thus fights inflation, also generate cash flow for you. They generate income. That income, on one hand, can be used to live on, to maintain your lifestyle, and on the other hand, you can use it to keep investing. Hey, look, now I see that my income has increased considerably. Instead of investing 100 euros every week in the P500 in an index fund or in a savings account, I'm going to invest 200. And in Bitcoin, instead of investing 50 a week, I'm going to invest 100, double the amount. Damn, you're increasing everything a bit more. And in the end, the snowball just keeps getting bigger and bigger. In the end, it's been proven people who make these kinds of long-term investments end up getting much better results. And you can end up living off what your own investments generate for you. Because in the end, let me give you an example. If you end up having, let's say, for example, you end up having 2 million euros in these kinds of assets, in a savings account, in some index fund or something like that, and you know that on average, it generates about 10% per year, how much would that be? Just to give you an idea, from 2 million euros invested in these kinds of savings accounts, that's 200, €0 a year. You can say, okay, so I know that on average, my savings accounts are generating about 200 €0 a year for me without me doing anything. Plus, I also know that I have X properties, and the rent from those brings in a certain amount of money every month. With that, you can already live. You don't need to live extravagantly or anything. 200, €0 from one side. Plus, what you get from rent, in the end, you have that cash flow coming in. Obviously, if you have to decide, what are you going to spend first? If you only live off your investments, what are you going to spend first? The money you get from rent or the money from your stocks and Bitcoin? Obviously, the money you get from your rentals. That's fiat money. That's what you have to use first to spend. If, let's say, what you get in fiat money isn't enough to cover all your expenses because you no longer work, you've retired, then you take a little from what your investment funds generate, from those 200 €0, but always fiat first. Fiat is always what you need to get rid of first. Get rid of fiat. Nobody wants fiat money. Why? Because it keeps losing value. Fiat money is for day-to-day use, paying expenses, paying bills, paying salaries, paying taxes, paying. In the end, we're here to pay. But the rest is what appreciates in value. The rest is what makes your wealth grow and keeps you moving forward. And these are the things I would have told myself. Honestly, if I had followed these little tips I've shared with you in this video 10 years ago, today my results would be much better. And above all, and most importantly, I would have done it all completely on my own. Any one of you can do it completely on your own. What does this mean? That you would have saved yourself a lot of trouble. I've mentioned this to you many times, haven't I? Over these past 10 years, I've had several business partners, I've had various collaborations, and every single 100% of these partners has turned out badly. All of them have betrayed me, stolen from me, made me lose money, got me into trouble. In the end, it's all just been fucking problems. People only bring you problems. Because in the end, no one is going to take better care of you and your family than you yourself. Other people, right? Everyone just looks out for their own ass, so to speak. So if you avoid partnering up with people, if you handle everything yourself from start to finish, fucking great, folks. And with everything I've just explained to you, honestly, It's a process that I ended up doing later rather than sooner, but in the end, it's given me good results. I wish I had started doing it from the very beginning, and that I had never partnered with anyone and had done everything myself. Above all, today, I'm already on this path, but I wish I had known it back then. And in this video, what I'm trying to do and convey to you is that you try to appreciate the information I've given you here so you can apply it in your own life. And above all, get rid of the silly idea that you're too late. Don't be that typical fool who thinks I'm already too late, or I'm too old, or I don't know this, or I don't know that, or whatever excuse you come up with, just a bunch of shitty excuses that only make you poorer. As they say, complaining is poverty, and if you don't take action, you become obsolete. Get it into your head. Complaining is poverty, and if you don't take action, you become obsolete. And while you're busy watching your neighbor's ass, your own house is burning down. So, get your minds right, gentlemen. Focus. Becoming rich, a millionaire, financially free is not complicated. It's true that we live in a society, especially in Spain, which is where most of you live, Spain and Latin America, live in a society where, even from school, it's ingrained in you that you're meant to be an employee, to work for someone else, that you're not going to get rich. That's for other people. Those are just dreams, utopias. That's what they implant in your mind. From a very young age, all that programming they put into your head, you need to take it, burn it, and say, I'm going to create the programming for my own damn life. Get into your head. I'm going to create the programming for my own damn life. Not the state, not the education system that's being pushed in whatever country you're in. I'm going to do it. I decide if I want to get rich or stay poor. I decide if I do this or don't do this. I decide everything about my life. Take control. You have to take control of yourselves. If you do that, in the end, the results are guaranteed. And I can tell you that as of today, if I've told you this, would you sign if you could earn €1 million from today to tomorrow? No, I don't know how to do that. Would you sign if you could earn €1 million from today to 5 years from now? Yes, same for that. I know how to do it. And so do you. Because in the end, I'm not special in any way. I'm not special in any way. I'm just a normal person like you. You're watching this video, you and I are two people exactly the same, with the same opportunities. And what's more, I come from a humble family. I come from a 100% humble family. I haven't had any privileges or anything out of the ordinary. I come from a 100% humble family. My family isn't rich, isn't wealthy, or anything like that. So don't use that as an excuse either. If you're thinking, well, I come from a poor family, I mean, of course, I don't have a rich dad. Neither do I. And more than 80% of all the billionaires in the world don't either. Because more than 80% of the millionaires in the world have made it on their own. They come from humble families. Less than 20% are the spoiled rich kids, the ones who inherited their wealth or something like that. The other 80% built it themselves. And you need to be in that 80%. In the 80% of millionaires who make themselves, and in the 5% of people in the world who have financial freedom. Because in the end, is what I say so many times. Life is very short. We don't know when we're going to die. I say it all the time. Like, I don't know if I'm going to die tomorrow. I have no freaking idea. Maybe something terrible happens and I die tomorrow. I don't know. And what do I want? To have lived my whole life like a slave? I want to live my way. I want to do what I want, go where I want, when I want, and with whom I want. If I feel like eating something, I eat it. If I feel like traveling, I travel. If I feel like investing in something, I invest. If I feel like sitting down and reading a book, I read it. If I feel like taking a nap, I take a nap. Although I don't take naps. Honestly, that's something that has never been for me. If I take a nap during the day, I wake up disoriented, I feel so awful. I like to wake up with the sun and go to sleep with the sun. I'm someone who lives with the sun. Like the sun god Maori, whom I have here all over. I live with the sun. From the moment the sun rises until it sets, that's my period of productivity. Life is when the sun goes to rest. And to wait for the next day. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this video and these words I've shared here are helpful to you. So that you can pursue what you truly want in life. That is to say, each of you will have your own goals. Obviously, that depends on each one of you. But there are many paths to achieve it. But above all, there is one thing that all paths have in common, and that is being disciplined, being aware, and most importantly, believing in yourselves. No, it's just that my husband doesn't believe in me, my wife doesn't believe in me, my parents don't believe in me, my brother doesn't believe in me, my dog doesn't believe in me. I don't give a damn. If you believe in yourself, you don't need anyone else. You don't need anyone's approval. You have to believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, you can achieve whatever the hell you want. You have to have self-confidence and self-esteem. No, it's just that they've told me I'm a loser. Okay, well, that person thinks you're a loser. What do you think about yourself? No, I think I'm the fucking boss. Alright, then you are the fucking boss. If you think you're the fucking boss, then you are the fucking boss. Period. No, but that guy says you're a loser. The one who says you're a loser is probably the real loser. Look at his life, and he's probably the real loser. Where is that person? Does he have what you want? Does he have the results you want? No. So then, who the hell is that person to call you a loser? And above all, why do you give value to someone who isn't even on the level to be able to affect you emotionally? Why don't you feel sorry for them? Or why are you weak enough to let yourself be emotionally affected by the words of just anyone? So don't pay attention to people. If they say to you, oh, that's crazy, how are you going to achieve that? How are you going to get rich? Well, obviously, they're going to say that to you because they haven't achieved it themselves. Most likely, the day you come across someone who has achieved it, someone who has reached their goals, they'll tell you the exact opposite. You'll meet someone who is where you want to be, and that person, I assure you, I swear on it, hand on the fire, will not tell you that you're a loser and that you won't make it. Because that person, at some point in the past, was a loser and hadn't made it yet. Until today, they've achieved it. In the end, well, it's like they say, right? In the end, successful people have been failures throughout their lives. You fail, until you finally make it. No one suddenly becomes successful just like that on the very first day. And usually, let me tell you something, people who achieve success very quickly and without stumbling eventually reach a point in life where something ends up happening to you, you lose that success, and then it's true that when you get back up, you achieve it again and do it even better. But in the end, you always have to stumble. Always. Remember, a successful person has been a failure on multiple occasions. They have failed many times before finally making it. So if you have failed or are failing, the important thing is to keep fighting, to keep persisting. And what I've told you here are several ways you can really build wealth in the long term. By saving, investing, as you can see, I've mentioned even small amounts, $50 a week, a month, $100 a week, a month, depending on your abilities. Buying a property to do business, not to go live in it yourself and spend what that house generates for you, but to do business. Buy low, sell high. Buy low, sell high. Buy low, sell high. In the end, there are business opportunities everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this video has been helpful to you. As I always say, if you found it useful, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. A hug, and see you next time.